Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cap and Gown. I'm Rachel Phillips-Buck, Senior VP for Student Success at Ferris Resources, joined by our president. Hey, Matt.
Hi, Rachel.
How's it going?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, 2026. How many times have you written 2026 in the last 13 days?
I've started to.
Yeah, I think I've done it like 2 or 3 times, and I'm still getting used to it.
I like it.
I need to fact check this, but Lillian told me the other day that the movie Mockingjay, what is that movie? You know, with the Mockingjay, like I Am Tribute. Hunger Games. She told me that was filmed, like that was supposed to be in 2026. Does that seem right?
I don't know.
Bailey or Z is going to have to fact check that for us because I was like, that feels like very future-y, and I don't know. Anywho, here we are, 2026. Do you want to talk about your index cards?
Oh, I can. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of new. One, you might notice I'm in a different room today.
It's exciting.
You know, Rachel has her own room for this show. And so she gets everything set up perfect. She walks in, she sits down, it's ready to go. And every time we do Cap and Gown, I'm like,
have to scramble.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of cleanup and I don't know.
So you're in a new room. It looks great.
Got a new room. We'll see. Things will change. Also new is note cards. So this is a 6x9, really nice thick paper.
Like half a page, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I like about it is it's like I should be able to fit everything from one meeting on this card.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna have that card in a location where I can use it until it's no longer needed, and then it can get tossed. But when I think about, I have gone through. I used to do note cards, and I used to have huge notepads, like accounting ledger notepads back, I don't know, 20 years ago. Then I went to note cards and then went to the Rocket book, right? A lot. But I just like note cards. There's something about it's like Johnny Carson, right?
Oh.
I'm in this conversation.
You've lost half your audience. They don't know what you're talking about now. Anyway, they're very nice note cards. I've never seen any that big. They're super helpful. And congratulations to a new organizational method for 2026.
Trying. The other thing new, Rachel, is this is new to the office, which I just think is awesome.
We can only see like 1/3 of it. For those of you joining us on podcast, Matt's holding up a 2065 piece Lego of a lighthouse on a rock that he bought our office for Christmas. None of us has touched it except for his daughter, who came in yesterday and was like, get out of the way.
Yeah. So once Olivia finishes with that might show up over here.
Cool. That's fun. I have a couple puzzles she's done like that for me because I like them, but I don't want to put them together. And she's like, give it. I'll do it. So helpful to have that skill.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Anything else you want to say before we move on?
What's new with you? Anything?
No. Nothing new under the sun. All right. That brings us then to the State of the Union. We have an interesting show today because we have year in review and year forward in terms of State of the Union. So really interesting to like wrap up things that happened in 2025, look forward to the new year and things that we want to be thinking about. Also, we are going to unveil our theme and our new book for the year, which will be really fun. I'm looking forward to it. So we have a lot of things to talk about. For those of you who maybe haven't joined us before, we do about 20 minutes of State of the Union, which is just where I read all the things I can about what's happening for higher education, give you a summary and recommendations about articles you might want to read. to get the full scoop, and then we'll move on to our content in just a minute. Okay, Matt, I want to start with what do they call it to be dramatic? The enrollment cliff, right? Which is like an enrollment decline. But what's really important about it is that over the next couple of years, 10 years, 15 years, high school graduates are going to decline. So when 2030 comes, the number of high school graduates is forecasted to be 3% lower than 2023 levels. By 2041, it's about 304 million high school graduates, or about 10% fewer than in 2023. So this article, called The Coming Decline in High School Graduates in Charts, I think is really helpful. I'm not going to cover all the charts, but Bailey does have the one that shows us this decline in high school graduates over the next couple of years. Again, it's not like a cliff. It's a steady decline of students who are that age. And you can see we're actually coming back to kind of 2009 levels. The problem is that we've made adjustments since then. And so we just have to figure out how we're going to mitigate some of the smaller population over the next couple of years. The good news is this isn't going to happen to everybody equally. So you have different states who are going to see increases and decreases in different ways. We have some states like South Carolina, Tennessee, Idaho, North Dakota, which are going to increase their graduates. Washington, D.C. is going to increase their graduates by 31%, which that's amazing. I don't know why that's happening. But then you have other states that are going to have these decreases. The South is looking really good. By 2037, the ranks of high school graduates in the southern region will rise about 3% to 1.5 million over 2024 numbers. So that's good.
I mean,
picture.
If you just look at this and you look at three, I don't know, populous states like California, New York, and Illinois, those are definitely gonna feel it.
Yeah.
Compared to Florida.
Or you just recruit from other states, which, a lot of our smaller institutions do anyway. The last one I want to show you from this article is shifting ethnic and racial backgrounds. So the projections are that the number of white, Black, American Indian, and Alaska Native public high school graduates will decline between 2023 and 2041. However, our Hispanic students are expected to increase steadily from 2023 levels through the next decade and a half, with their numbers growing about 16% by the end of the time we're looking at, which is 2041. So what's really interesting and what I think is worth the conversation on your campus is just, actually this next article is called "You Can't Create 18-Year-Olds. What Can Colleges Do Among This Demographic Upheaval?" Which is why it's important for us to talk about this, right? Like, we're not going to suddenly get more high school graduates. We have the number that we have. We can't have born more 18-year-olds. So what you have to do on your campus is be thinking about exactly what you're going to do to try to mitigate that. I have some suggestions from this article, but do you want to say anything about what we've talked about so far?
Nope. Doing great. I mean, it's just, yeah.
Awesome. So this article has a long list of things you can do. I think it's worth the read, but one thing it says is, not every high school graduate chooses to attend college. And in recent years, a smaller proportion have decided to do so. Between 2016 and 2022, the college going rate fell about 8% to 62% overall. So that's interesting just to think about, are there ways to entice students to come to your school, even if typically they wouldn't be interested in going to college? Are there ways that you can address that? A huge portion of this article, though, is if we just kept the students we have, we'd be healthy, which welcome.
We've been saying.
Welcome to it, y'all. This article just says, hey, you have to be realistic. You can't say we're going to just recruit our way out of this mess and then not recruit your way out of this mess, because then you're really going to be in trouble. So you have to have some long-term plans for how you're going to keep the students that you've recruited. National Clearinghouse Research Center says the national completion rate for college is 61% for students who entered in 2018. And Retention has to be part of the way you're thinking about how to keep your institution healthy. This says colleges have 3 jobs. It is to recruit students, to keep them, and to make sure their experience is of value. So thinking about how does boosting retention require an investment, which is really funny to me, Matt, because a lot of times there's a lot of lip service for increasing retention and student success, but a lack of investment in those things.
Right. Yeah. And again, it's like, I don't know. There's definitely right now, as you talk through the enrollment decline and everything that's facing higher ed, hopefully, I hate that that's happening and that's the reason, but hopefully it does lead to not just lip service, but real investment in the things that can make a difference with student retention, leading them on through to graduation.
Yeah, for sure. The last thing this article talks about is pivoting to adult students, which is a years-long process. It's not something you can just be like, okay, now we're going to recruit a lot of adult students. You have to have the infrastructure, the processes, the people, the systems in place to serve a fundamentally different population of students. And so that conversation on your campus is for sure worth having as you're thinking forward to some of these years that may be leaner than they are robust. So
sure.
Anything else about that?
No.
Okay.
I just know we've got a lot to catch up on. So I'm kind of.
Yeah. You don't have to say something about any of them.
All right.
Trends in higher education and student success for 2026. This is out of Inside Higher Ed. It's It's 26 different data points for 2026 around student success. A couple of them I'm going to call out, but I would encourage you all to read this article and see which ones are especially relevant to your institution. And also, how can you take this data and create interventions, strategic plans around those different elements. So here's a couple I'm going to call out. 2/3 of Americans say a 4-year degree isn't worth the cost because graduates leave without a specific job and with large amounts of debt. So interesting, we have 3 problems in that fact. The first one is a lack of value around a college degree. The second one is debt and cost and how much that is. And the third one is a lack of a clear path to a career. So if you're an institution, you just took that one fact and you're like, okay, we're going to solve all 3 of those problems, you would have a head start on what you need to do over the next couple of years. 15% of colleges are using AI for student advising and support. An additional 26% use generative AI for predictive analytics and student performance and trends. We're going to talk a lot about AI, not only today, I think, but for the rest of the year. But just thinking about how you're deploying that on your campus in a thoughtful way instead of what we're seeing on some campuses, which is just like throw it at everything and we'll see how it goes, which can be dangerous in terms of privacy, in terms of transformational experiences for your students. That's one that we've got to think about a little bit. Okay, 2 more for you. 36% of students have not participated in any extracurricular or co-curricular experiences in college. Isn't that shocking? Only 39% say they've been involved in at least one activity. So I would want to dig into this a little bit.
Sure.
Because it's very concerning. Maybe they have and they don't know. They're like, I don't know what co-curricular is, but I haven't done that.
I'm sorry. Does that say of students, of like all students, or
36% of students have not?
So, but think about if you're gearing and you're recruiting non-traditional students, right? And so a lot of your activities have to start changing because they're crafted for 18 to 22-year-olds. And so right there, I could understand a population that's like I'm here, for a few specific reasons.
Yeah.
Getting involved in activities is not really high on my list.
Yes. 71% of students have experienced financial trouble while enrolled in college, which I think is really interesting. And then lastly, 87% of Gen Z said they feel unprepared to succeed at work due to limited guidance, unclear paths to career from school, and uncertainty about which skills matter most. So again, I think any one of those facts, plus there's 20 other ones I haven't mentioned, I think if you just took those and said like how this is particularly relevant to our campus, where we are, the students we serve, the position we find ourselves in, what is the plan? How are we going to upstream solve some of these problems? I think it's a great use of your time. All right. Matt, you and I have talked for a long time, years and years now, about the test-free situation going on at so many schools. Like some are, what did they say? Like, you can send it in, you can't send it in. We're going to look at it. We're not going to, like, there's so many variations. Well, this study is coming out of a recent Senate administration working group on admissions out of the University of California, San Diego. It's relevant specifically because it is not like policy creators. It's not test builders. It's not any of those people doing this. It's faculty. Faculty are like, we want to look and see what's happened with our test-free experiment that we've done where we just haven't required those. So since the UC system eliminated ACT and SAT in 2020, they report a nearly 30-fold increase in students arriving without high school level math skills. According to the report, 1 in 8 students are testing below the high school level, and 1 in 12 are not even meeting middle school math standards. The university has had to redesign its remedial courses to reteach fractions and elementary arithmetic. So they say the data's in, like it's not ambiguous anymore. There's a couple of things that happened. We have the elimination of standardized testing. We have grade inflation in our high schools, COVID learning disruption. So we're still getting students who missed like this learning block that they needed. And then changes in US or UCSD's enrollment composition, including a surge of students admitted from under-resourced high schools and an increase in populations who are academically underprepared. So this is an opinion piece, but it's really about how the testing is not the bad guy. Like the testing is uncovering a systemic problem, and we shouldn't be mad at the tests. We need to go back to schools and figure out how we can help students, because admitting a large number of underprepared students risks harming those students and straining whatever resources you have on your campus. So now all of a sudden you're having to get students who should have learned something in high school coached up so that then they can continue to be successful.
I think it's interesting, like you pointed out, that faculty were really driving this research because they're dealing with it in the classroom. Like,
right.
How did you graduate from high school and you can't do a fraction? Well, and so if you think about for many of our schools, the faculty who are teaching those classes for freshmen, right? Yeah. Like there's just a whole lot that has been broken in this. And I think what it is an assumption of academic preparedness and this idea that we've talked about with grit, right? And okay, yeah, we're going to, what did the Tinto always said, like access without
support is not opportunity.
Yeah, right. And so, but the problem is the support has broken down at the K-12 level.
Yeah.
And there was no like, I don't know, like gatekeeper for, hey, so like we want you to come to our university, but there's going to have to be something in between.
Yeah. And this opinion piece is really about how the testing helps uncover the problem instead of creates the problem, which I think has been the narrative for a long time. Like tests are not fair, right? They favor certain populations over other populations. And this opinion piece is like, yeah, but it's like being mad at the thermometer when it says that you have a fever. The problem is the fever. The problem is not so much that you're doing this test to better understand, how high is the fever, how sick are you, that kind of thing. So it's a pretty interesting, I think we're going to have a lot of conversation around that testing and just academically underprepared students. What are you going to do? Right.
Yeah, it's good.
This article I think is so interesting, Matt, because I just think about all of the campuses that we visited. This article is about why college deferred maintenance is a growing risk. It's coming out of the Inside Higher Ed's 15 annual survey of college and university chief business officers, 169 chief business officers. They're like, hey, tell us what your biggest concerns are. Here's what's fascinating. 1 in 3 CBOs surveyed, which is about 36%, identified infrastructure and deferred maintenance cost as a top financial risk to their institution, just behind state and federal policy changes and ahead of things such as technology investment requirements, increased market competition, potential changes to international student enrollment, and changes in student athletic revenue and name, image, likeness deal, which those are all gigantic things that we're talking about all the time. This adding your deferred maintenance is a pretty new, like, oh gosh, we should be talking about that. But Matt, you and I have been to campuses where it's like, so this says like it can be your HVAC system. It can be your residence halls and your dorm. It can be you need rewiring. It can be
plumbing broke and flooded the entire dorm.
That's right. And they're not flash projects, right? That you're going to have a capital campaign. Like it's not like we're going to build this new thing. It's that you have these dingy classrooms where students are living and learning, and it's impacting the way that they think about your campus. So it's becoming a strategic enrollment risk. They were saying, which you and I have done this. This consultant says, I've worked with institutions where students are literally walking past shuttered buildings on campus tours or sweating through admitted student events due to outdated air conditioning systems, which we have been on campuses where both of those things are true. You know, Moody's rating, who's the one who says like, hey, you guys are doing a good job or not. They recently said of the 500 rated colleges and universities that they could sort of catalog, it's going to take between $750 billion and $950 billion over the next decade for them to make significant headway towards reducing deferred maintenance, upgrading facilities, and new projects that are critical to strategic positioning. So
the math on that is crazy.
And you know, yeah, the problem is it's a vicious cycle, right? So you're like, we don't have great enrollment, so we don't have tuition dollars, so we're going to defer that maintenance. So then we're not going to be able to recruit students because they're not. So basically, this whole article is like, that is an enrollment issue that you should have on the table and you should be talking about. You can't just pretend like it's like irrelevant to the rest of the work that you're doing on a campus. So that stuff's depressing.
Yeah.
Like being an adult.
Well, no, I would just say like, when I think about some of our schools, some of the most impressive gains retention wise that we've seen with our schools and how they're, so again, if you increase retention, what that does for your overall financial health, that then puts you in a position, plus you have alumni. Let's go back to my, the chain that I talked through, right? But you have alumni who then graduate and they're involved and plugged in and grateful, and so they're willing to give money. But I'm looking at so many great capital campaigns that have happened and led to great buildings on campus that really were updated, thinking about like what.
Yeah, it's just more fun though to have a naming right for a building, right, than to be like we're
going to take the mold off, or
right.
We've got moss growing on our building and we're going to pressure wash.
Yeah, or internet is terrible and we've got to upgrade that. Okay, like so there's a lot of difficulties. I think it's easier to get a building built than it is to do some of this deferred maintenance. It's just not as fun, All right, stick with me. I've got 3 more. I'm going to go really fast because I want to make sure that we get to our book. Study coming out of Wake Forest University, which shows us shockingly that a student's increase in a sense of belonging boosts graduation rates. You don't say. I always like when we have a good study to prove what we have been telling everybody.
Yeah.
Students who raise their sense of belonging in their second year 1 step higher on the 5-point Likert scale, which is just, I feel like I belong here. So maybe they gave it a 1 their first year and then it moved up to a 2. were 3.4 percentage points more likely to graduate in 4 years. So if they moved up one, and then after that, they continued to move up one, every step increase was linked to a 2.7% point higher likelihood of earning a degree within 6 years. So we know, right? People have to feel like they belong. It doesn't have to cost a lot, but they have to feel like they're seen and important in the campus community. And so investing in that is a wise idea.
It's just such a clear return on investment.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
For all the ways.
Yeah.
Then you can do your deferred maintenance.
Yeah, exactly. And then the last two I have are about AI. There's a really interesting article inside Higher Ed about professors starting to turn to handwritten work now. I think it's worth a read, but blue books are on the rise. Faculty are like, we are now having our students write longhand their essays and their papers. First of all, so that we know they're not just putting it in AI. But this article is really about once you have students engaging with the material in this way, not just putting it into AI and then, submitting their paper, they're interested in it. They're synthesizing it better. They have questions, they have ideas, they have responses. And so handwriting things out is a way to not only make sure that you're testing your students. This article makes a point that universities are not just about teaching, but also about certifying teaching. So it's not just that we're teaching, but we're also saying like, yes, you have mastered that skill, or yes, you've done a good job in that. This is a way to make sure that we're not outsourcing all thinking to AI and that our students are actually grasping what we're trying to teach them, which I really appreciate.
I mean, I've talked about that. If I was back in the classroom, I'd be blue booking it, and it's fun. It is fun. When I was at Arizona State and I was grading, I don't know, hundreds of essays written in a blue book, it's tiring. That takes a lot of work, but you learn a lot about the student. You start to see patterns of and then you kind of see when their memory starts to fade on answering that question.
Yeah.
Right. As opposed to, and to me, that student will remember that. Hey, I need to do a better job or remember more of these details. As opposed to asking ChatGPT to just generate that response and you're just bored. That's
for sure.
Did this actually
busy work? It's like the worst of busy work, right? This other article is about 5 predictions on how AI will shape higher education in 2026. And I think the takeaway here is that there's a lot of people. What?
Bailey just Googled, what is a blue book?
Oh.
Right?
They're fun, Bailey. You would like them. We're going to have to order some just so that you can have the thrill of filling that out. Okay, so AI 2026, 5 predictions. I would encourage everyone to read this, but I will say the main thing that I took away here is that some people believe there's an AI bubble, which is like whenever we get this new technology, this was true about Google, this was true about iPads, this is true about AI, where it's like it's going to solve everything and everything's going to be different and just everyone should be using this all the time for everything. And you get this sort of elevated sense of importance, especially now. And the question is, how is this going to change over the coming years as we're getting used to it? So if there's like a huge disaster that everyone's like, that came because of AI, people are going to be less interested in it. Like they're going to be a little bit more cautious. There's going to be different pressures on our institutions versus if it continues to grow and they're like, it solves all of these problems. But it remains to be seen right now. And I think, Matt, where we usually end up with these IT kind of like technical things is it's always a pendulum swing that sort of ends up right in the middle in the end, right? It's the greatest thing that ever happened. It's going to solve all of our problems. We're going to adopt it without being thoughtful. Oh my gosh, this is terrible. We've ruined learning. We've got to go back to the way we've done things. And then somewhere in the middle, you have this like, homostasis where we're like, okay, this is going to be okay. We've learned some lessons to be able to use this. But this like just general AI is good for everything, I think is a place that we're going to come back from pretty hard and be like, there's a lot of ways that people are not thoughtful about how to apply AI in their lives.
Yeah, I think it's an innovation, and so everyone's going to test it, right? And can I use it and create value? Ultimately, can I create value that other people will, you know, I can create something that other people will find valuable. You think about the dot com boom, and
Yeah.
how like everything, hyper, cyber moles or whatever, and how that all kind of settles out. And also with the iPad, exactly like you said, like the ultimately the there is a relationship between, always has been, for the essence of being a human, a relationship between technology and being human, right? And so, and how do we use this? Because um, well, that's right now it's being tested, right?
Yeah.
And things are going to fall out, and we're going to realize, we really don't want to use AI for these reasons, in these ways.
Yeah.
Like I was talking to a friend of mine who was looking at AI in medical devices, or and doing a lot of research on it, and found like there's a lot of bias uh, from the different LLMs, that is, it's just not good if you're a patient. Like
Yeah.
you don't want that. You want the kind of there has to be a balance there.
Yeah, it's just not a panacea, which I think is what people often act like with technology. Like, okay, now all our problems are solved. And the truth is, it may solve some problems, but it's going to create other problems. And we just keep going on as things evolve. So I think, the conversations at Ferris are all about how are we thoughtful about AI and make sure we're using it, we're deploying it in the right ways, and also protecting our students and our partners from harm by deploying it in a way that's not thoughtful. So that'll be a fun conversation to have over the next year. For sure. That is the State of the Union. Sorry, guys, I've been gone for a while, so we had to do a lot has happened in the last couple of weeks. But Matt, I'm excited today because we get to unveil our theme for the year and also our book for the year. This is always really exciting. Do you still have the list of our themes in front of you?
Yeah.
You're in a different office now. Okay. Will you give us the rundown of our themes, since I think our first one was in 2021? Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, you might remember we actually started Cap and Gown with Anthony Melchiori during COVID. And so our first theme was mission first, right? And so a lot of the conversations that you had with Anthony, and I would encourage people to go back, because everything we just talked about, everything was about like understanding what people need, what they were concerned about, right? So that's where Cap and Gown really started. But then once we named it Cap and Gown and got moving, 2021, the theme was kintsugi. So kind of the golden repair, and the beautiful art that comes when you take broken things and you mend it with gold, and the Japanese art of kintsugi. In 22, our theme was change. In 23, it was joy, which we needed big time in 23. 24 was curiosity. And that is also, you go back and watch the Cap and Gowns from then, because I think they hold up. Last year's was intentionality, being very intentional. And so, you think about slow productivity in our book there. Some really good conversations around just being intentional.
How do you build your life intentionally? Yeah.
So here we are.
So our theme for 2026 is presence, not like gift presence, but like presence. I'm present. This is really the idea of how do we create conditions where humans can genuinely know each other. So I want to unpack presence a little bit, and then I want to talk about why we picked this. What I think is interesting about presence is it needs time. So it can't be rushed. We talked about this, you and I talked about it, and then I talked about it with Dr. Woosley in our last podcast about there's time. It takes time to create excellent things. And you can't just be like, okay, whatever. You have to be very present with the person in the moment, with the problem, whatever's going on. You can't rush that piece. It's tied to this idea of creativity, where it can't be like, hey, be creative, quick. And you're like, hold on, I need some
Right.
time. I got to be present with myself and with others and with ideas. I think that's really important. Also, attention. So we need time, but we also need this deep focus. We've talked about deep work from Cal Newport, slow productivity. How do we engage our brains in deep thinking, and give attention to important things, not just like running through your day really harried and distracted by things. Also, I really like this, Matt. Presence takes smallness, meaning an advisor with 35 students, like, yes, that's small, but it's intentional so that you can be present. I told you when I was a counselor, there would be weeks where I would feel like I just sat still in my chair and just students came in and out and just said things to me and then left. That's not presence. You're not being present when that's the case. It's too much. Your brain's like, I can't pay attention to all this. So this idea of small, which I think is really the antithesis of some of the things that are happening where AI, where it's like, it's scalable and you can do everybody. Well, being present with people requires time, attention, and it requires smallness. You can't manage 350 students and still be present with each one of them. Okay, 3 more. Repetition. It takes an engagement with a person over and over and over so you can learn about them and have sort of an understanding of where they are, instead of it being like a check it off your list, you're done, you don't have to engage with that person anymore, right? So we have these small things that build a relationship in real life that you have to practice. It requires inefficiency, which again, we're going to talk about this a little bit, but this idea that we're all trying to be more efficient with everything we do. And sorry, actually being present requires some inefficiency. And also it requires a little bit of like slack and a little bit of wastefulness, right? You can't be like, okay, we have 30 minutes, tell me everything, go, go, go. You have to be okay with it not being the most efficient time, and with there being some slack in our understanding, in our conversation, in the time that we've allotted for each other. And so this idea of presence, I think, really is an answer to this idea of AI, which is going to be really good at some things. Like AI is going to help us with a lot of stuff. But understanding how we free up our time by using AI, and then asking the question, what does that human time that you now have back, now what are you directing that at, right? Because Matt, you and I were talking about, like, you can get more efficient with advising students, and that's great. But if you're doing that so that now you can advise 350 students instead of 30, you've only moved to more transactional. You have not moved to being more present with your students, right?
Yeah.
So that free time now, how does that allow you to spend time with your students? Which you and I have said from the beginning about Fairs 360, where like the goal is to make you efficient in the things that this technology can do, case management, measurement, all of those things, so that you can take that recaptured human experience and attention and give it to your students, because that is something that we can't outsource no matter what happens, right?
Rachel, as you were saying that, sorry, you've got one more to go.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead and say it, because then, yeah.
No, go ahead.
Well, as you were saying all of that, and I'm thinking about, last week I had coffee with a really good friend of mine. And when I think about like how, like, I don't do that enough. And it turned into like a 2-hour conversation. It just,
Yeah.
It was so rich, right? And it was like, so this thinking about time, and it's hard because we're both busy. He and I both have a lot to do, and I'm looking at my phone and it's kind of blowing up, and I just turned it over and I was like, hey, I'm sorry about all that. But when I think about if I had let's just compare, and I know not to really harp, we're going to have a lot of conversations, like you said, on AI, but if instead of sitting down and having coffee with my friend, if I had just, hey, ChatGPT, I want to have a conversation with you about things going on or things that I'm curious about, or like like in the end, like what was rich about that compared to this presence, relationship, being able to have a better understanding. And yeah, it took more time, and yes, it was inefficient in some ways, but the takeaway from me for me is I need to do more of that. So if
Yeah.
I can use AI to make other stuff happen, great. But those things are important.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, this idea of what is your theory of change, which is not to get into counseling too much, but, is your theory of change that people can't figure it out? And so what they really need is for you to be like, hey, here's what you're doing wrong, do this, right? It's what I always say about our students. Like, is our theory of change that they don't know they're doing a bad job and they just need somebody to tell them? And then they're going to be like, oh, sorry, I didn't realize. No, our theory of change, because we're people, is that relationships and context in which you solve problems is the secret sauce of change, right? So you and your friend may be trying to solve problems, and maybe you came to a solution or you didn't. But what's important is in the context of that relationship, all of the presence and discussion that you guys had, not just, okay, well, the solution was this, but we spent time together. That is where real change happens. It's not when someone's like, here's what you should be doing, go do it, right? Which is kind of the outcome that Claude would give you. Like, what's wrong with you? You shouldn't be doing that anymore. Or like, you've got to fix this problem. The context is super important in relationships. So
good.
Okay, so in line with this idea of presence, being present for ourselves in systems, with our students, in our institution, in our community, in your environment, our book for this year is called How to Know a Person: The Art of Seeing Others Deeply and Being Seen. So I want to do an introduction to this book. It's by David Brooks. He's a New York Best Time seller. He's written a lot of books that are really interesting. I want to read a little bit of what he says in terms of introduction to this book. So first of all, AI is going to do many things for us in the decades ahead, replace humans at many tasks, but one thing it will never be able to do is create person-to-person connections. If you want to thrive in the age of AI, you must become exceptionally good at connecting with others. So this idea of, again, what we're saying, like, technology is going to do a great job at some things, but presence and connection, human to human connection, can never be outsourced. And so we have to make sure that we are understanding better how to do that really, really well, because hopefully with all of the time that you get freed up with all of these efficiencies, you then can move into a space where you're present and connected to other people. The purpose of this book is to help us become more skilled at the art of seeing others and making them feel seen, heard, and understood. Adopting a different posture towards other people, a different way of being present with people, a different way of having bigger conversations. Living this way will yield us the deepest pleasure. And lastly, to be able to understand people and be present for them in their experience. That's the most important thing in the world. So this really affects this efficiency narrative. I think it helps us understand a little bit better how to put it in the root of our experience with our students. And this book is divided into 3 parts. There's I See You, the power of being seen, good talks, the right questions. The second part is I see you in your struggles. So things like hard conversations, the art of empathy, how you're shaped by suffering. And then the third part is about I see you in your strengths, your personality, how you have wisdom, all of those different elements. So I think it's going to be a really helpful book for us. I'm always looking for, I like sort of esoteric conversations, but I also like really practical, okay, what do I actually do? And Matt, I'm hoping that this can help us solve the problem that we have so often when we come to campuses, which is people have very good intentions, but they don't have any of those practical skills for how to be present with students, right? They don't know what to say. They don't know what questions to ask. They don't know how to listen exactly. And so I'm about those practical elements. Are you laughing at me about that, or you're laughing at?
No, I'm thinking about some specific examples where faculty have really struggled in saying the right thing.
Yeah, for sure. So this first chapter out of this book is about the power of being seen, which I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but it is our first chapter. So I want to just kind of unpack it a little bit. This is really fascinating to me, Matt, especially as I think about having, what do we call them, contributing citizens. I was just talking to Dr. Ferreira, at our SACS presentation that I did with him. And he's like, what we're trying to do in higher education is create contributing citizens, and everything that means. all of the skills that you have to be a good citizen and to be contributing to your community. Here's how this author says it. The real act of building a friendship or creating a community involves performing a series of small, concrete social actions well. Disagreeing without poisoning the relationship, revealing vulnerability at an appropriate pace, being a good listener, knowing how to end a conversation gracefully, knowing how to ask for and offer forgiveness, knowing how to let someone down without breaking their heart, knowing how to sit with someone who is suffering, and knowing how to host a gathering where everyone feels embraced, knowing how to see things from another's point of view, which I really love, because I think for so many of our listeners and so many people who work in this work of student development, that would really resonate with them. Like there's the hard skills you're teaching, but then there's like all of this other stuff you've got to learn as well. Anything to add to that one?
No, I love it.
Yeah, it's great.
Get into it.
We've got to go through that list and be like, make sure that you've taught your kids how to do all of these things.
Well, no, that's exactly that's exactly what I'm
going to work on. This idea of presence and connection, I think, is antithesis of social media, which this author says, you can have this illusion of social contact without having to perform the gestures that actually lay the foundation for good relationships. So everything that I just listed, you don't have to do that, because social media is so much about stimulation. Like, I liked that, I saw that, I looked, right? Instead of this intimacy that comes from these little things that you're doing to build presence and trust and community with people.
I literally just had that conversation with my son, 22 years old, and he's, and like, hey, it's really important. This is a very important skill. He's very gifted in a lot of ways, and it was just a really rich conversation, because he sees it. He's a senior in college, and he sees it with his friends, and he's like, I don't know. I think everyone's just wanting something richer than what they're getting.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And it's funny, we see this play out in higher education. If you think about stuff like, our learning management system, how it creates community, but not really, because we're not doing those small gestures, right, where we connect with each other. Sending like we care messages to your entire campus where everybody knows you don't really care. You don't know who I am. I don't know you, right? Early alert, where I've always been very, very bossy about, we don't send automatic emails, because that is the problem, is not that they don't know, it's that they need a person to stand with them, have presence, and help them figure out what they're supposed to do. So I think you just see that sort of worming its way into so many things, because we're trying to be more efficient. But let's remember, presence and connection requires some inefficiency. There is some place where we can't be like, you fit in the system and so you're good now. It's like, no, I need to hear your story and what's happening with you. And that's really important. This book talks about how students can be engaged. So we can look at engagement metrics. How did they log in? Did they click? Did they respond? And we can call that connection. But actually, there are a lot of students who are very engaged with our institutional touch points and technology, and they feel completely invisible and unknown. So you have to make sure you're measuring the right thing. It's not just how many touches. It's, did they come out of that feeling like someone was present with them and cares about what's happening with them? And I think that's hard sometimes. As we're trying to tell our story of success, we maybe are counting the wrong things.
Yeah, I think the point there, like, you have to be intentional. And I really think that I don't know, like when you think about like what are our KPIs, or how do we know that this was a success? And but it's hard to measure or to ask a student what they felt about it. Right? How do we capture that?
Right.
Versus, look at the number of people who looked at it and clicked it and liked it.
Right, which is, there's a whole conversation to be had about the way if a student feels seen is you find out who sees them. And then you ask those people, like, hey, is this student engaged? Do they feel seen? Do they have somebody who's going to celebrate with them? That's how you find that out. It's very hard, like in an assessment, to measure that, right? It is really about who on this campus sees you and gives you their presence in an unhurried way, but just like, hey, I just want to be with you, you know? This is really interesting. Here's another quote from this book, which resonates so well, I think, not only with us, but with our listeners and with our students. The author says, I often ask people to tell me about a time they felt seen, and with glowing eyes, they tell me stories about pivotal moments in their life. They talk about a time when someone perceived some talent in them that they weren't able to see. They talk about a time when somebody understood exactly what they needed at some exhausted moment and stepped in just the right way to lighten the load. I just think about how many students we've talked to where we say, why were you successful at college? Why did you stay? And they're like, somebody said my name, right? And then you're like, in that moment, somebody gave you their presence and you felt seen in a way that you maybe hadn't before, which I think is so powerful. Do you have something to say?
No, I think, I was just thinking about those experiences when I was a student. And I can go back to fifth grade when Miss Cooper was like, Matt, would you like to sit closer to the chalkboard? And then she calls my mom and she's like, I think he needs glasses because
Can't
blind.
see.
Think about that. Like, I felt seen by her doing that. But then just throughout my life, and I've talked about Dr. Don Drennan, who, connected an entire class on one day. It was super cool. And Rick Lytle, my mentor, who saw me and he was like, Dr. Boisvert. And he like kind of cast this totally different vision that's led to my life today, career today.
Yeah. And it is, Matt, I really like this part about somebody who understands exactly what you needed at some exhausted moment. It's always such an interesting feeling when somebody reveals something that is true about you that you didn't know before. And then you examine it and you're like, oh no, that is actually true about me, right? Like I am going to accept that truth. It's one of the reasons why I love Rhythm of the Academic Year, because the gift you can give students when they are like all the feelings, but they don't know why. And then you say, hey, you're feeling that because February is the hardest month. So let me tell you all the reasons, right? Here's the 15 things going on with you. Of course you feel overwhelmed. And then what that does for them in terms of normalization, they don't feel like an imposter. They don't feel like it's wrong. All of those elements are a blessing of presence. Using your expertise to be able to say, I see you and I know, that you're in a really difficult place right now. So really powerful.
So, sorry, this is, as you're saying that, and I'm thinking about, for our listeners, those who either are on the faculty and they teach classes, or they're engaging students, they're an advisor, but hundreds, thousands of students you've engaged, and so you actually have an insight into this student you're sitting across from, a wealth of experience with other students, to be able to say to this student, hey, you're really gifted in this, right? Like, hey, I think this is really interesting. Like, you, out of all the students I know, I see this in you.
Yeah.
I think that's a real gift. And the only way you can get there is to be present. But to have all of this accumulation, experiences, or knowledge, we talk about our stoplight survey, and how can faculty in the third week of class look at their class and say, these are the 4 students that I'm the most concerned about. The reason why is it's kind of like Malcolm Gladwell's book, Blink, maybe, but it's like, hey, I have this knowledge and I can see it in these students. These are the students I'm most concerned about. We'll flip that around. Like, these are the gifts that I see in you. Out of all of these students that I've encountered, you really have this ability to whatever.
Yeah.
That would be a gift.
I mean, it's what you're trying to do. Yeah, it's what you're trying to do for your kids, right? Where you're like, I know a lot of people and here are things that are outstanding about you. Well, if they don't have that measurement of other people, they're depending on you to say this is really exceptional. You are not like other people in this way, or you have this particular talent. One thing that this author says is there's something in being seen that brings forth growth. If you beam the light of your attention on me, I blossom. If you see great potential in me, I will probably come to see great potential in myself. If you understand my frailties and sympathize with me when life treats me harshly, then I'm more likely to have the strength to weather the storms of life. The root of resilience, the psychologist Diana Frosch writes, is to be found in the sense of being understood by and existing in the mind and heart of a loving, attuned, and self-possessed other. In how you see me, I will see myself. Matt, I was thinking about, the Maya Angelou quote about they'll forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget the way you made them feel. Right. And the like shining, what does she say? He says, if you shine the beam of light of your attention on me, which people know, like when somebody walks in a room, if your face lights up and you're like, hi, tell me what's happening, they know that different than have a seat. We've got to figure out what you're going to register for. What have you taken this class? Right?
Sure.
It's a totally different vibe if you are delighted to see me, which I think maybe is part of the measure if you're too burnt out to work in higher education, because students are the best part of it. And I am on forums where people are like, and then this dumb student came in to see me and I was annoyed. And I'm like, first of all, they can tell because they see your face when they walk in. And second of all, that's the best part of this work. If that's not going great, maybe you need a little vacation, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, the last thing I want to say about this chapter of the book is he talks about diminishers and illuminators. Diminishers make people feel small and unseen. They see other people as things to be used, not people to be befriended. They stereotype and ignore. They are so involved with themselves that other people are just not on their radar screen. So it's kind of like the worst of middle school. A diminisher would be like the worst of middle school. And it's a lot of like students these days, blah, 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 or students lack blah, blah, blah. Like, as opposed to illuminators, which they have this curiosity about people and they have trained themselves in the craft of trying to understand others. They know what to look for, how to ask the right questions at the right time. They shine the brightness of their care on people and make them feel bigger, deeper, respected, and lit up, which I really love in terms of what your face says when someone walks in the door and they're not confused about like, oh, you made me feel bigger, respected, loved, versus are you here again, right? Or what dumb question are you going to ask me today? Yeah. So I think there's so many ways that we can apply that in higher education. We want to be asset-based. We want to talk about what students bring. Matt, to your point, we want to say, here's something remarkable about you, versus being a diminisher, which is this, the best example to me is academic probation, where it's like, I know about you. You didn't do a good job last semester, so you need to go to tutoring. That's a diminisher. That is a person who's like, I'm making you feel small and like you failed, as opposed to being like, help me understand what was going on with you. And let's build a plan so that you can be wildly successful, because I know you can be, right? So I love that language. I think we have to start using it more consistently. And, I'm a big proponent of introducing vocabulary to our teams so that we can use that as a shorthand. Right? If someone said to me, Rachel, you're being a diminisher right now, I would just be like, I have to go. That's terrible.
Yeah. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully you're on a team where someone could tell you if you were.
Yeah.
But also understanding the difference between like what is the behavior of someone who's an illuminator versus diminisher.
Yeah.
Really, it's going to be really strong to talk through.
Yeah. So this introduction chapter is just the power of being seen. I don't think anybody who listens to us would be like, wait, what? There's power there. I think we all know that's true. But I think it's really important to say, how can we have these practical skills for doing that? So if you want to read along with us, the book, How to Know a Person, The Art of Seeing Others Deeply and Being Deeply Seen. Our theme this year is presence, being connected to our students, slowing down, being a little bit inefficient, being a little bit small with what we do. Because, Matt, that's the work we like. I mean, in general, people in higher education like that work. There's a whole bunch of other junk that we have to do that's not our favorite. But I think in general, we like being able to see our students really deeply and provide them with some learning that they haven't had before. So I think it's going to be a great year. I'm super excited about that.
That is the transformative power of higher education right there. Yeah, that's why we do it. So
it's really funny you say that, Matt, because we always talk about transaction versus transformative. And I'm wondering about this like IT, AI kind of piece where you're like, the transactional things we can outsource, the transformational things we need to keep in-house. But there's also this question of, if you outsource all of the transactional things, where is the space where a student is trying to solve a problem and so they're connected to you, right? We very infrequently have students who show up and are just like, hi, how's it go? Like, talk to me, right? Most of the time, it's like we're trying to solve a problem. Then in that context, we get to know them and we get to have these close relationships. So I think there is this question too of like, if we outsource all of that other stuff, how do we find opportunities to spend with our students and to make sure that they feel seen? So we will wrestle with that this year, no doubt. I think we're going to have a good balance of our theme of presence and then also, what's going on environmentally with technology in our campuses now. I think it'll be a really good balance of those two things and how they can kind of coexist. So I'm very excited about it.
Next cap and gown, 2 weeks.
2 weeks. And I don't know who our guest is off the top of my head. So you're just going to have to join us and it will be a good time as always.
Thanks, Rachel.
Yeah, good to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.